Hello everyone, we're back for part 2. Just as I suspected, part of the other video that I made for you guys was trimmed due to copyright infringement. The Wicked Games original music video somehow is on someone else's page but can't be on mine. So I included it in one of the comments below the first segment. I have a feeling that there's going to be some of the same issues for the remainder of the segments, so please be sure to check the comments below to make sure that you're actually listening and watching the examples that I'm talking about. Embedding in lecture is awesome, provided that I actually don't get copyright infringement notifications. So, wish I could tell YouTube somehow that this is just all for educational purposes and not trying to monetize anything. But in any event, we're gonna turn our attention to, like I said, Blue Velvet. Not the first of David Lynch's important films, but a step in a different direction, and one that would be provide a thesis for which he was interested in exploring in a number of different projects. So in his interview on Blue Velvet, David Lynch talked a little bit about the mysteries of darkness and love, and the idea of a small town that has a secret. And this is exactly like some of the two bigger plot points that are part of Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet is truly a disturbing film. I can't recommend it more highly, though. It has really stunning visual color palettes, fabulous acting, and some scenes that are really quite gripping in terms of their performances by the actors and actresses. Music here is also very interesting in terms of how it's used. I wouldn't say that there are a ton of like incredibly novel ways that music is used here as compared to perhaps Twin Peaks or even Mulholland Drive, but there's a kind of what I would call like saturation of musical material that happens. So Blue Velvet, maybe you guys even know the tune Blue Velvet, is the tune that opens up the opening sequence of the film. Isabella Rossellini, who is one of the lead actresses in this film, performs it live, but the first version that we hear is something that's very reminiscent of this very like mid-century 1950s kind of classic slow rock and roll kind of vibe to it. It's a ballad, but it screams a very particular time and place to us. And there's a lot about the 1950s that we associate with ideal households, the idea of like the stay-at-home mom, the nuclear family unit, that is kind of very heavily tied to the music that we hear that was at that time. Thinking really right off the bat, like Mad Men, for example. It's got a lot of that kind of aesthetic to it. Even the visuals of the film right off the bat, even though that's not the time and place that we are located. So we open up on a small town that's very, very picturesque, and we hear very, very picturesque music that's supposed to maybe give us this idea that this town, small as it might be, is a little bit behind in their ways. So this is some of the speaking that music can do, just on the basis of cultural context for us. So let's go ahead and watch the opening title sequence to Blue Velvet, or at least the opening number, so to speak, of Blue Velvet. All right, here we go. Blue Velvet, the opening sequence. What a beautiful scene. Beautiful blue sky, red roses and blue, white velvet. Followed by a scene of like everything that you might find in a picturesque town. Softer than satin to the everyday. So different offensive children that are all being very orderly and fairly
undersized. Love was ours, love I held tightly, feeling the rapture grow, like flames burning brightly. But when she left, gone was the glow of blue velvet. But in my heart still always
They have music going on despite the scene that is happening. And this like different layer of underscoring that's coming in, that's making us feel really displaced from the previous visual that we had encountered. All of a sudden, our underscoring stops, and we're introduced to a new sound cue. Cool. So that is the opening sequence of Blue Velvet. So to review, just in case that was cut for copyright sort of stuff, we open up on a really picturesque scene. Everything that is kind of everything that we see visually is reinforcing what we're also hearing in terms of the underscoring. Blue Velvet, you know, perfectly like even tempo sort of song. It's got like a sort of a shuffly swing to it. Really mirrors and helps reinforces like the sort of kind of iconic 1950s-ish imagery that we are seeing in this very picturesque town. And then all of a sudden we get this secondary layer of underscoring that comes in that is in direct opposition to the sound that we're hearing. We have this incredibly strange disconnect as we have like our character on screen, obviously needing help, but like the steadiness just kind of continues on through, paying no mind to what's happening with the visual. There's something that's called like added effect in music, and your reading talks a little bit about this, and so do my notes. We have this movement of the music that goes from what we call like empathetic scoring, to where it is reinforcing the thing that we're seeing, to empathetic music, something that is completely disregarding the visual scene that we are that is laid before us. So all of it though is going to be non-diegetic music that is not privy to the people who are on stage or on the screen. So we talked a little bit about that, like I said, in our opera lecture, but those are generally the two spaces that music can occupy. Either it's underscoring, where only the audience is able to hear it, or it is source music, where the actors and participants on screen can hear it in addition to the audience. Okay, so Blue Velvet, initially, like that's the big first musical cue that we have on our town scene, followed by later on Isabella Rossellini's performance of the same song. So it's no mistake to include both versions here. The idea that we have this very picturesque version that pulls up a lot of very particular images for us in terms of a very picturesque town. But then we have like a slinky, different version of it that actually has like weird variations to it. The idea that like something isn't always what it seems, which is a big theme in Lynch films, or that there's like a secret version of something. where you might be presented with the most picturesque version of a character or a song initially, just like in Blue Velvet, but there's actually like a deeper, darker, sinister, more mysterious layer. So Isabella Rossellini performs this song on stage, and we can't help but compare it to what happened earlier on in the film. So let me pull up her performance, which I really hope won't be removed from this lecture. Hold on. All right, here we go. So Isabella Rossellini's performance of Blue Velvet and like Blue Star, which is a sort of manipulation of Blue Velvet in a way, but it's also really like an original composition that is a collaboration between David Lynch and Angelo, oh gosh, I'm so terrible at pronouncing his Badalamenti, his score, this was a collaborative effort between them as well. So let's check out his orchestration of what's otherwise like almost a standard now, and how it is made to be a little bit more sinister.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light from the stars. She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet were her eyes, shadows for so blue, as lonely as a blue star.
We have a descending bass line that's part of another standard, Feeling Good, commonly sung by Nina Simone. That's probably the best known version of it. Later on in the film, we hear her performance come back
Gone was the glow
as underscoring. Oh, sorry, as diegetic music. He's back in the nightclub that she sings at.
but in my heart they'll always be precious and warm, my memory through the years. And I still can see blue velvet through my tears.
Dennis Hopper, of course, like fondling Blue Velvet for this scene. Okay, we'll watch this one in just a moment. I'd love to explain a couple of things that happened. So that's not exactly how it appears in the film. There's like there was obviously like a cut and a dovetail there. So those are the two sections that are prominently feature Isabella Rossellini's performance of Blue Velvet and like what's called Blue Star, which was a It used Blue Velvet like kind of as a launching point, but is more or less like an original composition between Angelo and David Lynch. So what does it mean to have like a song come in variation? Well, it kind of like plays into the theme here, the idea that like, first off, when she was singing Blue Velvet, we saw Laura Dern, and instead of just focusing on just the performance alone, we got to see someone else, two other people's reaction to the performance initially, and then a third person's. And all it is sort of well, one of the things that's reinforcing to us is like what we see is not the only layer of activity that's happening. Kyle MacLachlan's interpretation, like and like how he is moved by her performance, is totally different than Laura Dern, who is like obviously like a little bit put off, a little bit upset, made uncomfortable, and that's the whole idea, is that there's like these different layers beneath the surface. And that is a huge theme, that like everything might look very picturesque, but wait till you see all of the layers of decay and destruction underneath this pristine facade. Or not so pristine, because it's crumbling and we're privy to have a view into it. So that's a lot of that is diegetic music, and music that's moving from the diegetic non-diegetic boundary, especially when it's used to move us and to transition us into a scene. We start hearing variations on it as we move further away from the original source, which is also a very cool effect. There's another really wonderful like live performance scene that happens. It's called it's a Candy Colored Clown. Again, another like really typical tune that's like reminiscent from our opening title sequence, but now the images that we are faced with when listening to it are somewhat disturbing by the context. And of course, Dennis Hopper also has a lot of like interesting character development that happens as he reacts to music. It's like a trigger for him in a way. So let's go ahead and check out a Candy Colored Clown as it happens later on in the film.
A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night, just to sprinkle stardust and to whisper, go to sleep, everything is all right. I close my eyes, then I drift away into the magic night. I softly say a silent prayer, like dreamers do. Then I fall asleep to dream my dreams of you. In dreams I walk with you.
We clearly know that this is a fake
In
performance, even though
dreams I
the initially
talk
source of the
to
sound.
you.
There's something about the recording quality here that makes us know that
In dreams you're mine, all the time we're together.
All right, let's hit the fucking road. We're giving our neighbor a joyride. Let's get on with it. Bye, Ben. Anyone want to go on a joyride with us? How about you? Huh? Hey, no smile for Frank? No? Okay, fuck it. Let's go.
awesome. I love as much as I love the use of music in films, I also love it when there is no music in films. Dennis Hopper's character turns off the music. The illusion is broken when our lip syncer stops before the music stops. And then we're left with eerie silence. And I think that while obviously everyone is really uncomfortable in the room, or there's like, yeah, I would say that everyone's kind of uncomfortable in this room, or at least Kyle MacLachlan is. So is Isabella Rossellini. That like the silence here and having no sound continues to reinforce our idea of discomfort. Awesome. So great use of sound design, great use of using like popular music, but also using it in the context of live performance in this film. I can't, please, if you've never seen this film, please watch it. There are definitely some disturbing scenes, but everyone's performance here, especially Dennis Hopper's, is really, really stellar. And so is Isabella Rossellini's and Kyle MacLachlan. You'll notice as well, like this guy in the back with the hat and the sunglasses on top of his hat, is one of the characters in Twin Peaks. Kyle MacLachlan obviously is going to be Agent Cooper, who plays a huge role in Twin Peaks. So David Lynch has a number of characters who he has enjoyed working with, who seem to understand his vocabulary as a filmmaker and multidisciplinary artist. Laura Dern also has showed up in a number of his creations as well. So and I think that's a part of the really important part of the collaborative process, that like, it's not just about, it's definitely about finding the right person for your role, but part of that dynamic is when the actor or actress that is trying to take it on really resonates with it. And it's really not a surprise that, like, for example, Tim Burton seems to work with the same actors over and over again. There are these actors that are really driven to his kinds of visuals, his and his end product. And the same thing goes for, you know, like Wes Anderson films sort of are also examples of this kind of same propensity to use the same people over and over again. David Lynch also has some of this tendency as well. So. All right, we have 2 more parts of lecture. Very excitingly, we're going to move on to Twin Peaks and talk about all of the different music that happens there. Not all of it, but just a small smattering. I could talk for hours upon hours about just Twin Peaks alone. And then we'll cover a little bit of music and film scoring that happens in the somewhat disturbing Mulholland Drive in our final segment. So see you guys back for part 3 in just a little bit.